Part 14. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 131. Mr. N's heart froze. I really have that idea. Mr. Qin, Yanyan is still young. So, I haven't thought about provoking her for the time being. Qin Lu looked directly at Mr. N and said calmly. Mr. N was stunned for a long time, opened his mouth, and then asked again, "What about your family?" Grandma has long regarded her as her granddaughter. She is closer to Yanyan than to me. But you too will be criticized if you don't belong to the same family. Although Angia is good, it is only considered good. It is still good to be in Jincheng. Compared with top wealthy families like the Qin family, the gap is not even a little bit. He didn't want his granddaughter to climb up to the Qin family, for fear that she would be looked down upon by the Qin family. The disputes between wealthy families have always been a battlefield where no gunpowder can be seen, and its cruelty is not much worse than the real battlefield. Without a strong natal family to back her up, what if Yanyan was wronged by the Qin family? He doesn't know how many years he can live with his old bones. If he is no longer here, can he still expect those bastards to treat his granddaughter well? Old man, I don't need marriage, and I don't even bother with marriage. What I want, I will naturally get it with my strength instead of betraying my marriage. He has the confidence to say these things. He also proved with his strength that he can do it. My family has no requirements for my marriage. As long as I want to, no one will object. But Yanyan is still young, so it's too early to mention this. I promise you, Yanyan will not let her fall in love prematurely before she graduates from high school. I wonder if this is okay. Having said that, what else can Mr. N say? He sighed slightly. It depends on what Yanyan wants. If she likes it, old man, I will never interfere. Qin Lu stood up and bowed to the old man solemnly. Thank you. Hashtag. Yanyan bought a fruit basket at the supermarket near the hospital. The fruits are ready-made. She selected them herself and were packed and packaged by the staff. Nanyan was about to take it, but Anziran was quick and took it first. Then he asked diligently, Yanyan, do you want to buy anything else? If you don't want to buy it, go back. Oh. Anziran took the fruit basket to check out. Before leaving, he saw Nanyan looking at the lollipops beside the counter. Then he reached for 2 lollipops and put them in her hands. You can eat whatever you want. You're not fat, so you don't need to control your diet. Nanyan was stunned for a moment, but the movements of her hands were faster than her brain's reaction, and she had already peeled off the candy wrapper. She simply put the lollipop into her mouth and muttered, I didn't lose weight. This body is as thin as a stick. She has been gaining weight recently. Exercise and build muscle, trying to make her physical condition better. Otherwise, you won't have the energy to fight in the future, and it will be too restrictive. It's better not to lose weight. If you gain 10 pounds of weight for your height, it will only make you look more proportionate and not fatter. Nanyan bit her lollipop and raised her eyes to look at him without any emotion. Anziran immediately shut up. Then he couldn't help but mutter to himself. I don't know why, but he seems to be losing more and more status in front of Yanyan. Alas. Who knows that this is his biological sister, and she is also an esports master? If she doesn't have status, she has no status. Back at the hospital, the 3 brothers were still at the door. Seeing Nanyan and Anziran return, Hisai still pretended to be the eldest brother and said in a commanding tone, Nanyan, I have something to tell you. Nanyan's expression was indifferent, and his tone didn't have much warmth. We don't seem to have anything to talk about, young master. Hisai frowned, but thought of something, suppressed his displeasure, and said in a deep voice, Nanyan, you are angry now and have resentment against the N family. I understand that the N family has indeed owed you these years. But you can't deny that you are from Angia. Family happiness is what Grandpa hopes for. We will never do that to you again. You can tell us how you want us to compensate you. Anything is okay. Nan Yan seemed to be somewhat interested in this compensation. Anything we can do. Then please don't bother me in the future. Nan Yan's tone was calm, and his cold gaze looked at An's Hisai without hesitation. And don't make me unhappy. She sympathized with the original owner's resentment and hatred. So she didn't have any good feelings towards the An family. Except for fourth brother Anziran, she just wants to take revenge on them. An's Hisai looked a little ugly. An Siding was also stunned. Only An Mulin couldn't help but sigh when he heard this familiar rhetoric. It seemed that Nan Yan was not so ruthless to him alone. Nan Yan was too lazy to pay attention to them anymore. He took the fruit basket from Anziran and knocked on the door again. Not long after, Qin Ye came over and opened the door. Nan Yan restrained her coldness, curled her lips and asked, "Uncle Tian, can I go in?" Qin Ye said with a smile, "Of course, the old man just said that Miss Nanyang has been buying a fruit basket for so long, why hasn't she come back yet?" Nan Yan entered the ward and Qin Ye closed the door again. There is no intention of letting outsiders in. Anziran sat leisurely on a long chair outside the ward, taking out his cell phone and preparing to talk to the people in the team. He estimated that he would be delayed here for a few days. As a result, before he opened the chat software, An's Hisai and Mulin and An Siding all stood in front of him. "What's wrong?" Anziran raised his eyebrows, pretending not to know what they meant. He put the phone in his hand back into his pocket. "You and Nan Yan. How did you make Nan Yan accept you?" Anziran said a little bit, "From the moment you spoiled An Weiao and helped her hurt Yan Yan, you have already lost and have no chance." Looking at the tense expressions of the three brothers, his tone became more serious. "Yan Yan used to have expectations for you, but you killed her who once wanted to integrate into the An family. Think about what you have done to her in the past 2 years. Why should she forgive you?" Anziran's words made the three brothers fall into deep thought, thinking about the unfair things they did to Nan Yan for An Weiao. Even if they didn't do anything, their biased attitude, as well as their indifference and disgust when Nan Yan showed them kindness, were also a kind of harm to her. There was also cold violence, ignoring, and letting the servants bully her. One by one, all of these were evidence that made her disillusioned with the An family. They seemed to have caused a lot of harm to their own sister invisibly. Anziran whispered, "I am very glad that I didn't spend too much time at home in the 2 years since Yan Yan came back. I didn't reject her and hate her like you did. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the face to stand in front of her and ask for her forgiveness." Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 132. In the ward. Mr. An seemed to be in a good mood. When Nan Yan came back, he grinned at her. Nan Yan glanced at Qin Lu, then came to the bedside and said, "Grandpa, you can't eat the fruit yet. I'll put this here. I'll buy fresh ones for you to eat in a few days." Mr. An nodded, "Okay, then Grandpa doesn't want to eat now. My granddaughter is really smart." Knowing that he sent her out to have a private conversation with Qin Lu, he didn't ask any questions when he came back, looking very calm. "Grandpa, please have a good rest. I will go to school and come to see you after school in the afternoon." Just now, Nan Yan felt his pulse and knew that his condition was stable, so he was ready to leave. Mr. An nodded, "Go ahead. You don't have to worry about Grandpa. Xiao Tian is here, so everything will be fine. Brother, let's go." Nan Yan tugged at the corner of Qin Lu's clothes and raised her head to look at him. Qin Lu spoke to Mr. An, and then the two of them left the ward together. Mr. An looked at Nan Yan's leaving figure and couldn't help but sigh in his heart, Yan Yan has really grown up. Immediately, his eyes darkened. I hope that this young Master Qin is sincere to Yan Yan and can protect her. Hashtag Outside the ward, Nan Yan met the four brothers from the Yin family again. She simply ignored the other three brothers, and her eyes fell on Anziran, fourth brother. Aren't you going back to the base? Grandpa, I'm not worried. Anziran was actually very anxious. The game will start in more than 10 days, and the team is conducting maximum pre-game training. But the game is not as important as Grandpa. Grandpa, I'm here, everything will be fine. Fourth brother, please go back to the base. We will continue training in the evening. Nan Yan's eyes finally glanced at the brothers of the Yin family, and he said with cold and wanton eyes, and if you stay here, you will only disturb Grandpa's rest. I asked Uncle Tian to keep an eye on you and won't let you in. Everyone. Why? They are all Grandpa's grandchildren, but they can't go in to see Mr. N just because of their granddaughter's words? Anziran thought for a while, then I go back. Yes. Nan Yan paused. When Grandpa gets better, I will inform you to come back to see him. Okay, Anziran said simply, then I'll go with you. Whatever. So, Anziran left with them. As for whether the other three brothers of the Yin family want to leave, it has nothing to do with Nan Yan. Hashtag. It was originally a two-person party, but now it has become a three-person party. Anziran was annoyed with Qin Lu for no reason, but was intimidated by his aura and did not dare to show it. Originally, he wanted to pamper his sister, but then a brother who was basically related to his sister appeared and competed with him for favor. You say it's irritating or not? And this man, he seemed to be unable to compare. This is the most irritating thing. Fourth brother, what are you thinking about? Nan Yan called him twice, but received no response, so her voice couldn't help but become louder. Anziran came back to his senses, shook his head and said, it's nothing, it's just about the competition. He definitely couldn't say that he was thinking about how to compete with Qin Lu for favor. Yan Yan, what's wrong? Nan Yan replied calmly, I'm asking you where to get off. Where are you going? I go to school. Oh, then just put me at the door of your school. Mr. Qin, I'm sorry to bother you. Qin Lu said in a calm tone, no trouble, I want to send you Yan Yan anyway. Anziran gritted his teeth. Listen to this affectionate name. Yan Yan is his sister. How about my dear sister? But he couldn't say this. The car soon stopped at the gate of Zhide High School. At this point, the school has already started a lesson. After Nan Yan got out of the car, she put one hand on the window and waved her hand with a smile, brother, goodbye. Qin Lu looked at her deeply with his dark eyes, and said seductively like a subwoofer, I'll pick you up after school in the afternoon. Nan Yan rubbed the stung ear and responded obediently. Anziran, who was on the side, felt even more sad when he saw Nan Yan's well-behaved appearance. After watching Qin Lu's car turn around and drive away, Nan Yan's cute expression disappeared and she asked quietly, fourth brother, do you want to follow me to school? Anziran nodded, I have something to ask your class teacher. Nan Yan took out his student card, swiped it and the two of them walked in. After entering the room, Anziran rubbed Nan Yan's head and said, Yan Yan, you go to class first. Nan Yan glanced at him speechlessly. Why do all these people like to rub her head? Does she look that soft? Forget it, she couldn't care less about him being her fourth brother. It's recess time now, and there are many students in the school. Seeing Nan Yan come to school, everyone's eyes fell on her. After learning about Shenqing's story, they wanted to say something to Nan Yan, but seeing the indifferent look on her face, they all consciously did not disturb her. This is not a good-tempered person. In the past month, the number of times I've been in the office because of fights has been comparable to the number of times the school bullied everyone in a semester. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Nan Yan entered the fourth class of the second grade of high school. When everyone in the second and fourth classes of high school saw her, they became excited, stood up spontaneously, and gathered around her. "Boss, are you here? Boss, we all read the post. It turns out that you were so miserable before. It's so pitiful. That pair of adoptive parents are not human beings. They deserve to die. Boss, Nwao bullied you so much. What do you want to do? You can't know a person's heart by looking at his face. Nwao always acted gentle and generous before. Who knew that she was so vicious in her heart? She occupied your identity and wanted to drive you out of the N family. She is really a vicious person. Boss, don't let her go." "Shut up," Nanyan said in a cold tone, with a look of depression. "Go back to your seat and don't bother me." Everyone. Well, they still want to comfort their boss. But now it seems that their boss doesn't need their comfort at all. As expected of the flower of the snow mountain, he is very cold. Everyone sat back in their seats angrily, and then started to send messages in the small group without Nanyan. I thought that the boss might take a few days off, but I didn't expect that the boss's heart was so strong he only took a day off and came to school today. To be honest, I always thought that what the boss experienced only existed in TV dramas, but I didn't expect that someone actually experienced it. Not only did she not let her miserable past defeat her, but she also became so outstanding. I declare that the boss is my idol from now on, and I want to learn from her. Whoever opposes the boss from now on is opposing me, and I want to protect the boss. Me too. And me. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 133. Nanyan naturally didn't know what was going on in the small group. She was very annoyed with this group of people. She didn't have much good feelings towards them. But she didn't know that they recognized her as the boss because of her gaming skills, and now they decided to take care of her because of her miserable past. Except for some people who still had opinions about Nanyan, the rest of them were sincere and pure, and wanted to be good to her. Although this class of students was very bad, they were not hopeless. Nanyan didn't expect that it was this group of people who made her irritable and impatient that would completely change her mind in the future. Not long after, the class bell rang. The teacher who came to class took a special look at the back of the class. That look was kind and gentle. After class, he walked to her desk and specifically told her, "Nanyan, if you need help in the future, remember to go to the teacher." Nanyan was silent for a while, then nodded, "Thank you, teacher." The teacher patted her head, "Good child, you suffered in the past, but you will get better and better in the future, come on." "Okay." Then, Nanyan deeply felt the enthusiasm of the school teachers and students for her. Almost every teacher who came to class took extra care of her. And the classmates in the class knew that she didn't like to make noise, so they would be very quiet after class. Then someone came over and gave her a bottle of milk, and then someone else came over and put some snacks on her desk. Hashtag. In the office, Anziran waited for a whole class before waiting for the class teacher Yu to come back from class. Anziran stood up, "Hello, teacher, you are Yanyan's class teacher, right?" Class teacher Yu was stunned for a moment, then nodded, "Well, I am Yanyan's class teacher, don't know who you are." "I am Yanyan's fourth brother. This time I came to thank the class teacher for taking care of Yanyan during this period, and I hope to add the class teacher as a friend. If you have anything in the future, just call me directly, don't contact anyone else." Anziran also learned from Anmulan that class teacher Yu had called Lulahua several times, and after her reaction and actions, she came to the school to find the class teacher to change Nanyan's parent contact information. In the future, he didn't want Lulahua to hurt and disturb Nanyan again. And he also knew that Nanyan would never forgive them easily, or even not forgive them. If he didn't know what Nan Yan had experienced before, and didn't know what Nweo had done to her, he might have persuaded Nan Yan to forgive them and return to the An family. Now he has only one thought. The An family doesn't deserve her forgiveness. In the future, it will be enough for him and Grandpa to take care of her. Teacher, you thought about the consequences of her contacting Lulahua these times, and happily changed Nan Yan's parent contact information. Before leaving, Anziran shook hands with the teacher and thanked her for taking care of Nan Yan again and again. Teacher, you also repeatedly said that she would take care of Nan Yan more, let him rest assured, and contact him if there was anything. After coming out of the office, Anziran sent a message to Nan Yan, telling her that he was going back to the base. Not long after, Nan Yan sent a text message, okay. Hashtag. Anziran did not go directly back to the team training base. He went to the hospital where Lulahua and Nweo were. When he came, Nyeoking had just left. Lulahua and Nweo were arranged in the same ward, and there were bodyguards guarding the door. This was arranged by Nyeoking. Someone wanted to break into interview Nweo before, but they stopped him. The bodyguard at the door knew Anziran. When he saw him coming, he called him forth, young master, and one of them came forward to help him open the door. Lulahua was not seriously injured. He fainted because he was too shocked for a while. After waking up, he was basically fine and could be discharged at any time. But because Nweo was hospitalized here, she simply stayed and wanted to accompany her. So, when Anziran came in, she saw this scene. Lulahua sat beside Nweo's bed, holding a plate of cut fruits in his hand, and was patiently feeding Nweo. Seeing this scene, Anziran's anger was immediately aroused, and he was extremely disappointed with Lulahua. He frowned and slammed the door hard. The loud noise frightened Lulahua so much that his hand trembled, and the fruit fork in his hand almost stabbed Nweo's face. Ziran, what are you doing? Lulahua turned back and angrily scolded Anziran. It should be, let me ask you, what are you doing? Anziran's expression was cold, and he looked at them with deep sarcasm. You didn't see what was on the hot search, did you? Yanyan has suffered so much grievances, are you blind, or are you blind? Can you still be so kind and caring to Nweo, the scourge? She has harmed Yanyan for 18 years, and Yanyan is your biological daughter. You don't feel sorry for her, and it's fine to seek justice for her. Are you going to treat Nweo as your own daughter and spoil her? Anziran has never felt so angry. He thought that even if his mother favored Nweo, it was based on her being really excellent and sensible. But the truth was revealed. She was a white-eyed wolf in sheep's clothing, with vicious thoughts and cruel and vicious means. She could still spoil him. Was she cursed by Nweo? Lulahua's face turned blue and red after what Anziran said, feeling guilty and embarrassed. Nweo showed her grievance and sadness just right, and tears fell down. Seeing Nweo crying sadly, Lulahua said angrily, Yao Yao did something wrong, but now that she knows it was wrong, she has spent her life to apologize to Nan Yan. What else do you want her to do? If she does something wrong, should she be beaten to death with a stick? Not even give her a chance to change her ways. Anziran had a stern look on his face and said coldly, Don't say it so noble, using your life to apologize to Yanyan. Do you think I will believe this nonsense? If she really wanted to use her life to apologize, she should have chosen a clean and tidy way to die. Suicide by cutting her wrists has only been successful in TV dramas. In reality, no one will die from cutting their wrists. If you want to fool those netizens, don't use it to fool me. Lulahua looked at him in disbelief. Anziran, what are you talking about? Do you really want to force Yao Yao to die? How can you be so cold-blooded? Am I cold-blooded or are you cold-blooded? From the beginning to the end, it was your biological daughter who was hurt. When she was exposed on the internet and hurt by her adoptive parents, were you worried about her? Have you ever thought about solving it for her? No, not at all. All you can think about is this adopted daughter who caused you to be separated from your biological daughter. Anziran was obsessed with her and had no intention of speaking. He sneered, "Since you chose Nweo, please stay away from Yanyan and don't disturb her. With that said, please don't regret the choice you made today. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss." Author, Junanan. Chapter 134. After saying that, Anziran turned and left. Lulahua looked at Anziran's cold back in astonishment and disbelief. She felt hurt at first, and then angry. She was his mother, and he treated her like this. Lulahua shouted angrily, "Anziran, stop right there." Unfortunately, Anziran didn't seem to hear her shouting at all. He didn't even pause. He quickly walked to the door and slammed it. Anziran. Lulahua was really angry this time. The child she raised actually dared to rebel against her like this. What did he think of her? "Mom, I'm sorry, it's all my fault. Fourth brother must be angry with me, so he talked to you like this." Nweo pulled Lulahua's sleeve pitifully, tears dripping, crying like a pear blossom in the rain. She entered the hospital yesterday by cutting her wrists to commit suicide and was placed in this ward. She spent a whole night coaxing Lulahua, and finally coaxed her to be happy and regained her love. She must not let Anziran ruin it. The hatred in Nweo's heart kept spreading. Why, she has been Anziran's sister for 18 years, but she is not as good as Nanyan, who has only been back for 2 years. Anyone who is against her is her enemy, and anyone who stands by Nanyan is also her enemy. Thinking of this, Nweo's eyes flashed with cruelty. Since he was on the wrong side, don't blame her for not considering their 18 years of brother-sister relationship. Because she lowered her head, Lulahua didn't see the malice in her eyes, and comforted her distressedly, "Yao Yao, don't think too much, it's not your fault, it must be Nanyan who is petty and fussy, and said something to your fourth brother, don't worry about him. In the future, you don't have to worry about dad and mom not wanting you, so in the future, you should try your best to have a good relationship with Nanyan, and don't target her anymore, okay? Your reputation is much more important than hers. It's not worth ruining your own reputation for her. Now is the information age, and the updates are very fast. Wait a few days, when the heat is not so high this time, you can go abroad for further studies for a period of time, a few months or half a year, and after the storm is completely over, find a way to change everyone's opinion of you. You are going to be a musician, you must cherish your reputation." Lulahua has devoted almost all his efforts to Nweo and cultivated her into a talented woman. She was unwilling to let her be abandoned like this, so she and Nyeoking thought about it for a long time before coming up with this solution. Nweo knew that Lulahua and Nyeoking were still on her side because of her talent and strength. However, she didn't dare to tell them that just yesterday, after the post was exposed, her teacher Huayuyi called her and told her that she didn't need a vicious student. She was no longer Huayuyi's student and couldn't continue to learn violin from her. The blow she suffered yesterday was not just this one. Her studio was reported and badly reviewed by those nosy netizens and has now been blocked. Her personal account has also become a place for those people to vent their anger, and the messages are simply unbearable to read. Almost all the fans accumulated over the past few years have turned from fans to haters, and there are not even 100 true fans who really stay. Overnight, she almost lost everything. And all this was thanks to Nanyan. Nweo gritted her teeth secretly, with a fire burning in her heart. She will get revenge sooner or later. Nweo slowly suppressed her resentment and hatred, and said softly with a well-behaved look, "I will follow your arrangements." She raised her head and said firmly, "Mom, I will not let you and Dad down again." Lulahua nodded, raised his hand and patted her back. Mom knows that you are a good child. Come on. Yeah. Hashtag. After school at noon, Nan Yan was taken to the office by the dean. Nan Yan, come and sit down. As soon as Nan Yan entered the door, the dean called her over enthusiastically. Dean, do you have something to talk to me about? Nan Yan sat opposite the dean and raised her eyebrows slightly. The dean had a stern face and pretended to be serious. Can't I talk to you if there is nothing? Yes, of course. Nan Yan leaned back in the chair a little casually, and said with a slight curl of her lips, it just so happens that there are many people eating in the cafeteria now, so you can go after there are fewer people. Don't go to the cafeteria to eat in the future. The dean took out a few lunch boxes from under his desk and opened them in front of Nan Yan. There were 4 dishes with a good combination of meat and vegetables, as well as rice and soup. Nan Yan raised her eyebrows. This is... The dean coughed lightly, trying to make himself look more sincere. My family made a lot, and I can't finish it all by myself. You can come and eat with me at noon in the future. He did this to take care of Nan Yan. When he saw those posts that broke the news, he felt very distressed for Nan Yan. He had never taken food from home before, and he always ate in the cafeteria, so there was no need to be so troublesome. But he felt that if he invited Nan Yan to dinner, she would probably not agree, and he was afraid of hurting her sensitive self-esteem. So he thought of such a way. Nan Yan looked at him. Her cold and unruly eyebrows were slightly raised, and she seemed to be smiling, which made the dean feel a little guilty. He felt that with Nan Yan's intelligence, she must have guessed his thoughts. Will she agree? Then thank you, Dean. Nan Yan leaned her elbows on the table, and her eyes were a little warmer. Although she was not sensitive to emotions, she would respond with a good attitude to those who were truly kind to her. The dean was taking care of her, and although she didn't need it, she didn't want to refuse his kindness. The dean breathed a sigh of relief, and then smiled and said, then it's settled. After school at noon, you will come to my office to find me. Okay. Nan Yan agreed happily. Hashtag. After school in the afternoon, Nan Yan returned to the classroom from the computer room and prepared to pack her school bag to leave school. But she found that there was a bouquet of flowers on her desk. All the classmates were there, even Lu Rongrong, who had always been against her. A classmate looked at her nervously. A strange color flashed in Nan Yan's eyes, and then she walked towards her desk with an indifferent expression. When she passed by Lu Rongrong, she suddenly stood up, clenched her fists nervously, lowered her head and said apologetically, Nan Yan, I'm sorry, I was deceived by Nwao before, and I have been against you and troubled you. I was wrong, please forgive me. She was not a person who could not distinguish right from wrong. The reason why she treated Nan Yan like that was not only because the original owner was too cowardly and humble, which made her look down on him, but also because of Nwao's gesture. However, now that she knew the truth, she only had contempt and disgust for Nwao, and she would no longer be friends with Nwao. Nan Yan, I hope you can give me a chance to make up for my mistakes. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 135. After Lu Rongrong finished speaking, she waited for Nan Yan's answer with some uneasiness. If Nan Yan didn't accept it, she would probably be slapped in the face in public. However, if she didn't say it under such circumstances, when it was just the two of them, it would probably have no effect at all. Although she was abused by Nan Yan several times, she found that Nan Yan was really charming, so that she couldn't hate him even if she wanted to. This is an absolute gap. Nan Yan's expression did not change, and she didn't intend to respond. For her, wrong is wrong. If an apology is useful, then what is the use of the police? What's more, the original owner who was really bullied by him has long died. She has no right to forgive anyone who hurt her on her behalf. Just as she walked past Lu Rongrong expressionlessly, and Lu Rongrong's face suddenly became embarrassed, the whole class stood up. Nan Yan, I'm sorry. The neat apology successfully stopped Nan Yan's steps. The class monitor Gu Yuhao took the bouquet of flowers directly from her desk and walked in front of her with his long legs. On behalf of all the classmates, he held the flowers in front of Nan Yan and said apologetically, "Boss, we were wrong in the past. We maliciously targeted you and did a lot of stupid things. Can you give us a chance to correct it?" The others in the class said in unison, "Boss, give us a chance." If Nan Yan had not shown her powerful abilities and was still as timid as before, even if they saw yesterday's post and knew her past, they would not do what they did today. At most, they would not target her again in the future. In the end, they would be conquered by her strength. Nan Yan's aura was very cold, and even her expression was alienated. She didn't want to have anything to do with this group of brats. Gu Yuhao saw her silent refusal and simply said, "Boss, whether you accept our apology or not, we will recognize you as the boss in the future." Nan Yan. The others followed suit and said, "Boss, we will be your little brothers in the future, and you can do whatever you want." Nan Yan was speechless. This group of middle school boys with second-year syndrome. Gu Yuhao held the flowers and stood firmly in front of her, as if he would not leave unless she took them. Nan Yan took them expressionlessly. "I'll think about it." Gu Yuhao said quickly, "Boss, take your time to think about it, don't rush." Nan Yan. Hashtag. Qin Lu was waiting for Nan Yan outside Hyde High School. This time he did not go outside, but sat in the car, looking at the direction of the door through the car window. When he saw Nan Yan coming out, perhaps he himself did not realize that his cold expression instantly became a little warmer. As Nan Yan walked out of the school gate, he saw that the little girl was holding a bouquet of flowers in her arms. Is this, someone is pursuing her? Qin Lu's breath, which had just heated up, suddenly turned cold. Who is so desperate to pursue his child? Wu Yu sat in the driver's seat, feeling the pressure coming from behind, and felt like sitting on pins and needles. There was a trash can at the gate of Hyde High School. Nan Yan walked to the trash can and threw the flowers that were forced into her arms directly into the trash can. Seeing this scene, Qin Lu's breath was slightly relieved. It seems that this is a one-sided pursuit, and the little guy did not agree. Wu Yu lowered the car window and shouted, "Miss Nan, this way." Nan Yan heard someone calling her, and she saw Qin Lu's car. She walked directly over there. Wu Yu got out of the car quickly and opened the back door for her. "Miss Nan, please." Nan Yan got in the car and saw the man inside. She first called him brother. Then she put her school bag aside, leaned on the seat with some tiredness, and raised her hand to pinch her eyebrows. Suddenly, her hand was moved away, and the man's warm fingertips replaced her hand to help her massage. "What's wrong? Is your head uncomfortable?" The slightly hoarse and sexy subwoofer sounded in her ears, which was too exciting. Nan Yan shuddered subconsciously. "No. Brother, my head doesn't hurt, no need to rub it." Looking at the handsome face of Qin Lao up close, not only the sense of oppression doubled, but also the attraction doubled. The cold emerald fragrance on his body rushed into her nose. The faint fragrance floated, and the charm was everywhere. She shrunk herself tightly into the seat, trying to keep a distance between them. In order to avoid her being bewitched and not thinking clearly for a while, and doing something to offend the boss. Qin Lu noticed her resistance, withdrew his hand, and sat back in his seat. "Are you in a bad mood?" he asked tentatively. "Not really, just a little annoying." That class of students made her feel irritated. She thought about treating them coldly and not giving them face, but their actions today made her a little unable to refuse. After all, they are all teenagers. To her, they are a group of children, and she won't take them too seriously. There is still more than a year to spend together, so it's almost enough. But Nan Yan didn't know that in Qin Lu's eyes, her irritability was mistaken as her being annoyed by others' pursuit. It might be a warning of premature love. Little friend, at your age, the most important thing is to study hard. It's too early to talk about love now. Nan Yan stared at him inexplicably, and a symbol slowly appeared in her mind. Why did he mention the matter of love to her? Could it be that he thinks she is secretly in love with him? No way. She just has a little crush on him and lusts after his body. Can you tell that? Brother, Qin Lu reached out and rubbed her head. You don't need to explain, brother has no other meaning, just want to tell you that you should focus on your studies at your age. Talking about love, you should wait until you go to college. Premature love is not a good thing. She will go to the imperial capital for college, and he wants to see who dares to hit on her in front of him. As for now, any signs must be nipped in the bud. Does he mean that she can do something to him after going to college? But she doesn't mean that, okay. If he knew that she only lusted after his body and didn't want to develop feelings, would he kill her? A dark color spread in Nan Yan's eyes, and under his gaze, she could only nod, okay. Wu Yu drove in front without complaint, looking back from time to time. Why didn't he understand what the young master said? Isn't the young master pursuing Miss Nan? Why are you saying now that Miss Nan is not allowed to have an early relationship and can only date when she goes to college? But it seems that what you said is right. Miss Nan is only 18 years old now, still a high school student. If the young master takes action so early, it would be too beastly. Waiting until she goes to college to start a relationship would be perfect. Wu Yu couldn't help but repent for his previous thought that the young master was not a human being. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 136. 2 days later, Mr. N was scheduled to be discharged from the hospital. And Nan Yan also planned to go back to his old house with Mr. N for the time being. She packed a suitcase, some clothes, school supplies, and notebooks, and left everything else here. Pulling the suitcase and carrying the notebook, Nan Yan opened the door. Then she saw Qin Lu outside the door, seemingly waiting for her. Brother, aren't you busy? He takes her to school and picks her up from school every day, as if he is waiting to be her driver every day. But Nanyan knew that Qin Lu was busy with business in Jinqing. She also often saw Qin Lu doing work on his laptop in the car. He probably doesn't have that much free time. No matter how busy you are, you still have time to see the children off. Let's go and pick up your grandpa from the hospital. Qin Lu naturally took the suitcase from her hand, then took her free hand and pulled her towards the elevator. Wu Yu was not here this time. He was sent to deal with other matters, so Qin Lu was the one driving the car. Nan Yan stood beside the car, watching Qin Lu stuff her 18-inch suitcase into the trunk, then took the backpack on her shoulder and put it together. After closing the trunk, Qin Lu placed his palm on Nan Yan's head. Yan, get in the car. Oh. Nan Yan pulled his hand down, went directly to the passenger side, opened the door and got in. As soon as she buckled her seat belt, an arm was stretched out in front of her. The man held a lollipop in his noble hand. Kids, eat some candy. The low, magnetic voice contained a touch of endearment. Nan Yan was startled, and raised her eyes to look at his overly handsome face, her heartbeat speeding up uncontrollably. Being teased like this every day, even if her heart was made of stone, she wouldn't be able to resist it. And her mental age is not 18, the taboo age. Don't like the taste. Qin Lu saw that she didn't answer, thinking he didn't like the lychee flavor. There's also orange flavor, Do you want to change it? I like it. Nan Yan calmed down her emotions, took the lychee-flavored lollipop from his hand, opened it several times, and held it in her mouth. Thank you, brother. There was something in her mouth, and her voice was vague and soft, as if she was coquettishly speaking. There was a faint smile in Qin Lu's eyes, and he felt an inexplicable bad taste in his heart when he saw the little girl's mouth bulging out from the candy. He suddenly raised his hand and pinched her cheek. Nan Yan's red lips were pinched and puckered. She glanced at him speechlessly, childish or not. Qin Lu calmly withdrew his gaze and drove. Hashtag. In the hospital, everyone from the Yin family, except Nziran and Nweo, were waiting outside the ward. When Lu Lihua saw Nan Yan and Qin Lu approaching, a dark look flashed in his eyes. He stood up and was about to walk towards her. Nweo King grabbed her and told her in a suppressed voice, Yan is our daughter after all. Please speak more politely. I know, Lu Lihua shouted, then pushed his hand away and walked to Nan Yan. Yan, Mom wants to talk to you. Lu Lihua never felt that there was anything wrong with what he did. She is her mother, the one who gives her life. At this point, she could make any request to Nan Yan. Nan Yan couldn't refuse yet. This was what she thought in her heart, so she felt that there was no problem for her to talk to Nan Yan about Yao Yao. Nan Yan looked at her indifferently. MRSN, there seems to be nothing to talk about between you and me. The sound of MRSN made Lu Lihua's face stiffen again. She had never cared about her title before, but since she knew the truth, she actually wanted to repair her relationship with Nan Yan. She thought that as long as she lowered her status, Nan Yan would be grateful. However, the fact forced her to face it. The grudge between Nan Yan and her could not be eliminated by just a few words of weakness. She suppressed her impatience and said kindly, Yan, I am your mother. Nan Yan raised her eyebrows coolly and said sarcastically, aren't you Nweo's mother? When did you have anything to do with me again? Lu Lihua clenched his fists hard, and the expression on his face was almost unbearable. Yan, don't talk angry to Mom, you are my biological daughter, we are biological mother and daughter. Nan Yan reminded her coldly, you said it yourself before that you would sever ties with me. You can't have such a bad memory and forget it so quickly. You. Lu Lihua was so angry that his chest hurt and he stared, unable to say a word. With Nan Yan being so uncooperative, she had no way to communicate with her normally, let alone ask her to forgive Nweo. MRSN, please let me go. I want to see Grandpa. There was impatience in Nan Yan's eyes, and the cold look in her eyes made Lu Lihua's heart freeze. This rebellious daughter doesn't think of her as her mother at all. How can any daughter treat her mother with such an attitude? Lu Lihua was so angry that he felt dizzy and raised his hand to catch her. Don't leave. Nan Yan was about to avoid her hand, but Boss Qin, who was standing next to her, made a move. He blocked her hand and said in a cruel tone, MRSN, are you deaf? Lu Lihua gritted his teeth and almost lost control. But when he saw Qin Lu's cold and cruel expression, he immediately felt guilty. She retracted her hand slyly, she was too embarrassed to stay here, and returned to Nweo King with her head lowered. Nan Yan grabbed Qin Lu's hand and warned him unhappily, brother, can you please consider your position as the president? I can handle this kind of small matter by myself. You are not allowed to interfere next time. Qin Lu's sexy Adam's apple rolled. Looking at her unhappy expression, he smiled and replied, okay. Nan Yan ignored the family members who were looking at her and said directly, brother, let's go see Grandpa. Yeah. She held Qin Lu's hand and walked past the family members as if no one was around, and came directly to the ward. She raised her hand and knocked on the door, and soon Qin Ye came to open the door. Miss Nan Yan. Mr. Qin, come in quickly, the old man has been talking about you for a long time. Qin Ye smiled and welcomed people into the ward. and Anyeoking and others who were refused entry looked unhappy. The old man was too much. They had been waiting here for so long, and came early, but they were not allowed to enter. As a result, Nan Yan came and let her in directly. How can you treat them differently like this? When Tianyi was about to close the door, Ans Hisai leaned against it and asked politely, Uncle Tian, we are here to see Grandpa too. Please ask again if Grandpa is willing to let us in. Okay, I'll ask again. Young master, please wait a moment. Tianyi replied politely, then closed the door and returned to the ward. Nan Yan and Qin Lu came to Grandpa An's bedside. Grandpa, how do you feel today? Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 137. Grandpa An smiled and said, very good, Dean Tao's medical skills are very good. He gave Grandpa acupuncture twice, and Grandpa's body is a little relieved. Tianyi heard the conversation between the two and couldn't help saying, Miss Nan Yan, why don't you let Grandpa stay in the hospital for a while? They had never tried Chinese medicine and acupuncture before. Dr. Lu, the old man's attending physician, specializes in Western medicine and has always treated him with Western medicine. The effect is also good, but it can't get rid of the root of the disease. Because the old man's foundation is too poor, the condition often recurs. Dean Tao often comes to the old man's ward these 2 days, and Tao often talks about some things like Chinese medicine health preservation. He thinks it's very useful. If Tao can treat the old man for a longer period of time, perhaps the old man's health can be fundamentally better. Even Grandpa An actually wants to stay in the hospital for a few more days. Nan Yan came today to discuss it with her. Nan Yan shook her head, no, it will be better to go home than here. Tianyi was stunned. He didn't expect that Nan Yan still insisted on letting the old man leave the hospital even though he had said that the old man's condition had improved a lot with the treatment of Mr. Tao. He had always felt that Nan Yan really cared about the old man and was really good to him. But now, he couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. His tone was a little heavier, Miss Nan Yan, don't you understand how weak the old man's body is? His condition really can't stand being dragged on. Seeing this scene, Qin Lu couldn't help but guess. Does the old man of the An family not know that the little guy knows medical skills? With a little genius doctor at home, why should he stay in the hospital? Uncle Tian, I know about Grandpa's health. Nan Yan saw through his thoughts, but she didn't have any unhappy emotions. She said in a gentle voice, so, I want to treat him myself. You, Uncle Tian didn't quite understand what Nan Yan meant. Old Master An didn't care about anything else. He was moved by Nan Yan's words. He said to Tianyi, Xiao Tian, listen to Yan Yan, pack up and let's leave the hospital. But, old man. Tianyi wanted to fight for it again. The old man doted on Miss Nan Yan and wanted to listen to her in everything. But she was just a child, how could she know how dangerous the old man's health was? At this moment, the door of the ward was pushed open and Tao Qingming came. Tianyi hurried over as if he saw a savior. Dean Tao, why don't you persuade our old man to stay here for a few more days? You gave him acupuncture these 2 days, and his health has finally improved. If he is discharged now, won't all the previous efforts be wasted? Tao Qingming was stunned by the question, and then looked at Nan Yan. Nan Yan nodded to him, Old Master Tao. Tao Qingming immediately understood what was going on. He smiled and said, didn't Nan tell you that she knows medicine? Olden, I really envy you. You have a little genius doctor at home. She is very skilled in medicine at a young age. In time, her achievements will probably not be worse than her master, the genius Dr. Hua. If Nan hadn't arrived in time this time, you, Olden, would probably be in danger. It was Nan who saved you from the gates of hell. Yan Yan, what old Tao said. Olden was shocked and a little bit unbelievable, but the words came from old Tao's mouth, so they couldn't be false. Nan Yan patted the back of his hand soothingly. "Grandpa, your health is not too bad, you can recover. I will live in the old house for a while and adjust your body thoroughly." "Yan Yan, Grandpa can have a granddaughter like you, it's really a blessing from 10 lifetimes." Olden was speechless and didn't know what to say at all. His poor granddaughter, who was bullied and tortured in the country by her adoptive parents, actually had such a skill. It was unbelievable. She also saved his life. Mr. N couldn't help but feel extremely emotional. Qin Ye was also shocked and stunned. He finally understood why the doctor issued several critical illness notices when the old man was rescued in the emergency room. After Miss Nan Yan came and forced her way in, she never notified them again that the old man was not alive. It turned out that it was Miss Nan Yan who saved the old man. Qin Ye realized that he had questioned her feelings for the old man before. He walked to Nan Yan in shame and bowed deeply. "Miss Nan Yan, I'm sorry. I misunderstood you and thought you didn't care about the old man. I'm really sorry." Nan Yan helped him up, her eyes were gentle. "Uncle Tian, I didn't tell you before, it's my fault." Tao Qingming joked, "Mr. N, I guess I'll bother you in the future, I hope you don't find me annoying." Mr. N said quickly, No, we're so happy that Mr. Tao can come to the N family." "Yan Yan, didn't you tell them that you know medical skills?" This they naturally refers to the people of the N family. No, Nan Yan's tone was a little lighter. "I don't have such a deep relationship with them, and there's no need to tell them about my affairs." Okay, then don't tell them, Grandpa knows it, and you can tell them when you want to." Mr. N understood that Nan Yan was too disappointed with the N family. This is not a good Yan Yan. If it were him, he would also have a bad impression of this family. They did those bastard things, he would not force Yan Yan to forgive them. When Yan Yan untied this knot and was willing to accept them again, "We'll talk about it." Nan Yan didn't want to mention those people, so she helped the old man sit up. "Grandpa, pack up, let's leave the hospital." "Yeah. Okay, leave the hospital." Hashtag. With Qin Lu's help, he and Tian Yi quickly packed up. Looking at Qin Lu, who was not arrogant, the look in Grandpa An's eyes when he looked at him was also a little more satisfied. Grandpa An couldn't walk by himself now. Tian Yi wanted to carry him, but Tao Qingming asked someone to send in a wheelchair. Nanyan pushed the wheelchair herself, and Tian Yi opened the door. The An family who had been waiting at the door finally saw Grandpa An. "Dad, are you going to leave the hospital?" "Grandpa, how are you? Why don't you stay in the hospital for a few more days?" Several people surrounded Grandpa An, talking to each other, which gave Grandpa An a headache. Shut up. Although Grandpa An was weak, his momentum was not reduced. With that, the An family members shut up temporarily. "I am also very pleased that you can stay in front of the ward, but I have Yanyan to take care of you, so I won't delay you, just do what you need to do. During this period, no one should go to the old house to bother me." Lulahua said, "Dad, what are you talking about? You are seriously ill, how can we, as sons and grandsons, not serve you by the bed?" Grandpa An said in a calm voice, "No need, Yanyan doesn't want to see you, I don't want to make her unhappy." Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 138. The faces of the An family members changed immediately. This blatant favoritism was beyond their acceptance. "Dad, even if you are partial, you can't be so partial." "I am partial, so what? You don't feel sorry for my granddaughter, so can't I feel sorry for her?" Grandpa An's tone was very bad. Because of his weak body, he didn't even have much strength to speak, but his momentum was not weak at all. "I tell you, Yanyan will stay with me in the future, don't think of bullying her again. All my shares and property will be left to Yanyan. I, and Kong Pen, want to protect her. I want to see who dares to look down on her. Dad. Can you not be so confused? And Yeoking admitted that he was indeed biased in dealing with Nan Yan. He preferred Nweo, who was sensible and excellent, and didn't like Nan Yan, who came back from the countryside, didn't know anything, and only made trouble. But is this wrong? Who doesn't like better children? After he brought her back, he never lacked food or drink for her, and even used his connections to arrange for her to enter Hyde High School. He asked himself, he had done well. It was she who didn't improve herself and didn't give them a chance to like her. Can he blame them for this? Am I confused or are you confused? Old Master and snorted coldly, you can even lose your own daughter, and you don't know how to make up for it after finding her. When you lose her completely, you will regret it. He said nothing more, he was too lazy to care about them, turned around and said to Nan Yan in a gentle voice, Yan Yan, don't care about them, let's go. And Yeoking gritted his teeth, looked directly at Nan Yan, and didn't dare to get angry in front of the old man. He tried to speak in a gentle tone, Yan Yan, I have something to tell you. Nan Yan didn't intend to give him face, her unruly eyebrows were stained with coldness, I have nothing to say to you. I'll say it again for the last time, you'd better not bother me in the future. And family. When Old Master N heard Nan Yan's emotionless words, his eyes became darker. Yan Yan was so heartbroken that she didn't want to care about them at all. Forget it, if Yan Yan really doesn't intend to forgive them, then don't forgive them. Anyway, they did something wrong and they don't have the face to ask her for forgiveness. Nan Yan pushed Grandpa in and walked past them slowly to wait for the elevator. After a while, the elevator came up. After the door opened, there was a tightly wrapped woman inside. At first, no one recognized who she was. When Nweo walked out of the elevator and knelt directly in front of Grandpa N, her identity was known. Grandpa, I really know I was wrong. I am sorry for Nan Yan. I am afraid that Nan Yan will return home and I will be sent away. Mom and Dad will not like me anymore, so I did those bastard things. I really know I was wrong. Please, give me another chance, don't drive me away. Grandpa, I was too scared. I don't want to leave Mom and Dad, I don't want to leave you, I don't want to leave the N family, it's jealousy that blinded my eyes. I did something wrong and I am willing to admit the punishment. I only ask you to give me a chance to make a new start. Nweo cried with tears, her pale face, red and swollen eyes, and she deliberately exposed her bandaged wrists and kowtowed to Grandpa in one after another. Lulahua was so distressed watching from the side that he wanted to speak for her. And Yeoking grabbed her and motioned her not to go. After knowing the truth, the three brothers and Hisai also saw Nweo for the first time. Even if they loved her in the past, their attitude towards her changed after what happened. It seemed that he could not like her anymore. Old Master N had a headache because of her crying. He pinched his eyebrows and said expressionlessly, you get up first. Your parents raised you. I won't interfere too much, but from now on, you are not allowed to go to the old house again, and you should not appear in front of me again. He couldn't forgive her for what she did just because she cried a few times. Her mind was so vicious that she didn't deserve to stay in the N family. But he could see that his son and daughter-in-law wanted her to stay. In this case, he didn't want to care. He just wanted to have his granddaughter to accompany him. They could do whatever they wanted. Grandpa, please don't be like this. I really know I was wrong. I will change, I will definitely change. Nweo's heart was full of resentment, and she hated the cruelty and ruthlessness of Mr. N. She had called him Grandpa for 18 years, but he didn't care about the previous feelings at all. Damn old man, why didn't he die earlier? No matter how resentful she was in her heart, Nweo didn't show it on her face, she just cried. She knew that it was useless to just ask Mr. N, and she said to Nan Yan, "Yan Yan, please help me beg Grandpa, I really know I was wrong, I won't fight with you for anything in the future, I will return you the identity of the eldest lady of the N family, my parents, and everything to you. I just beg you, don't drive me away, please." Nwao suppressed her hatred and begged. Nan Yan carelessly helped Mr. N to tidy up the wrinkles on his clothes, and then looked up at her, "Have you said enough?" Nwao looked at her blankly, not knowing what Nan Yan meant. "If you've said enough, get out of the way. We're in a hurry to go home." Want to get her forgiveness? What a sweet dream. If the original owner was still alive, with her cowardly nature, she might forgive him. But she was dead and it was impossible to forgive her. Yan Yan, Yao Yao knew she was wrong. In order to apologize to you, she cut her wrists and committed suicide. Do you have to force her like this? Lulahua couldn't help but broke away from Nyaoking's hand and came over to speak for Nwao. She did something wrong, but murderers have a chance to reform. Can't you be more tolerant and give her a chance to get better? There was sarcasm in Nan Yan's eyes. No. She licked her red lips and sneered, cried twice and shed some blood just to be forgiven. Why? If she really repented and really wanted to apologize to me, then she would have gone to Nan Hanjiang's house and lived a hard life for 16 years, so that she could empathize with the suffering I suffered back then. Oh, that was the life she was supposed to live, and I endured everything for her. She took over my life and wanted to ruin it. I'm not the reincarnation of the Virgin, so I can't forgive her. Nwao squeezed her hands fiercely, the hatred and resentment in her heart almost bursting out of her mouth. She shouldn't have been soft-hearted in the first place, she should have taken action earlier and killed her. There wouldn't be anything like this. Nan Yan gently patted Mr. N, who was a little excited, and said softly, "Grandpa's health is not good. I don't bother to argue with you. Just stay away from me as far as you can in the future, and don't be an eyesore in front of me. You and your family can do whatever you like, don't make it difficult for me." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 139. Nan Yan's words made the entire N family feel ashamed. Nwao almost dug her nails into her palms, looking at her viciously, wanting to rush forward and strangle her to death. But in front of so many people, she could only hold back her anger and lower her head to suppress the hatred in her heart. Under the gaze of the N family, Nan Yan pushed Mr. N into the elevator. After Nan Yan and the others entered the elevator, Nwao looked at Lulahua crying, "Mom, Grandpa refuses to forgive me, what should I do?" Lulahua comforted him, "Your grandfather is angry now. Let him calm down first. When he calms down later, he will definitely see your kindness and accept you. He didn't kick you out of Angia, so there's still room for change. You go abroad to study for a few months, and you'll get better when you come back. Your mother is right. Regarding this matter, let's settle down first and make arrangements for you to go abroad first. We will talk about the rest after you come back." And Nyaoking doesn't want to give up on her daughter yet. In his eyes, Nwao was worth much more than Nan Yan. Among wealthy families, it was common for brothers to kill each other, so what Nwao did was actually nothing. Internet public opinion may go against her in a short period of time, but the internet is a place that changes very quickly. Let alone a year or two, in a few months, this matter will probably be forgotten in the memory of the majority of netizens. As for the matrons of wealthy families, none of them are simple, have no means, and are ruthless. How can they control the back house? Therefore, as long as Nwao is good enough, she can gain a foothold in a wealthy family. Nwao heard Nyaoking and Lulahua say this, so she could only do this for the time being. On the other side of the old immortal, she found an opportunity to ask him to report to the palace of hell as soon as possible. When he dies, let's see who can protect that bitch Nan Yan. The top priority is to let her parents and brothers regain their impression of her and not be alienated from her anymore. Nwao took a deep breath, then walked towards Hisai and the others, lowering her head, as if admitting her mistake. She said with a hoarse voice and a cry, "Eldest brother, second brother, third brother, I'm sorry, Yao Yao has let you down. She has already conquered Anyao King and Lulahua, and now she still needs to conquer these three brothers. As for Anziran," a hint of cruelty flashed across Nwao's eyes. "She will let him know the consequences of being on the wrong team." Hisai looked at the girl who had been doted on by him since childhood, and the originally perfect filter in his heart was broken. He had some grudge against Nwao. But after all, after so many years of true love, under her hopeful yet sad eyes, he couldn't be too indifferent. Seeing his attitude, Mulan and Ansiding remained quiet for the time being. After a long silence, Hisai said, "Go home first, don't let others laugh in the hospital." Nwao bit her lip and nodded obediently, "Okay." Hashtag. In the car, Mr. N took Nan Yan's hand and said in a deep voice, "Yan Yan, when we return to the old house, I will ask the family lawyer to come over and transfer those shares and assets to you." He originally didn't want to transfer so early, but the attitudes of Anyao King and Lulahua today made him so chilled that he didn't plan to wait any longer. Nan Yan looked at him with clear eyes and whispered, "Grandpa, I don't want your shares and assets. After all, she is not the original owner and doesn't want to have too much to do with the N family. And she won't spend much time in Jincheng. When she waits for college, she will go to the imperial capital, and her future goal is to be international. Jincheng is, at best, just a temporary place to stay. If she asked for the things that Mr. N gave her, it would be a shackles for her." "Why not?" Mr. N became a little anxious. "You don't want to forgive your parents, do you still want to draw a clear line with Grandpa?" "Of course not." Nan Yan caressed his chest. "Grandpa, calm down first and don't get excited." "Why am I not excited, Yan Yan? What are you thinking about? What do you want to do? Let Grandpa know everything, don't let Grandpa worry too much, okay?" Ever since he learned that Nan Yan was a miracle doctor, Mr. N could no longer look at her with his original mentality. In the past, he thought that Nan Yan knew nothing and was an ignorant child. He was afraid that she would not be able to survive in the future, so he wanted to leave all his assets to her. Now that he knew what she was capable of, he wanted to give her everything he had. He was worried that with Nanyan's attitude towards Angia, if he died, she would leave Angia without hesitation. That was the result he didn't want to see. He would rather use those assets to tie up Nan Yan so that she could stay in Angia. "I don't want to do anything. At this stage, I just want to study hard and try to get into Tokyo University next year." Nan Yan patted him comfortingly. "Grandpa, it's too early to say that now, let's talk about it later. You want to go to a university in God's capital." Mr. N's attention was suddenly diverted by her goal. He had naturally paid attention to Nan Yan's academic performance, but it was simply impossible for him to go to a university in God for Nan Yan's performance. He still doesn't know that Nan Yan ranks first in the monthly exam this time. Nan Yan nodded, "Yeah." Mr. N gritted his teeth and clapped his hands. "Okay, as long as you want to go, Grandpa will definitely find a way for you to make it happen." Nan Yan. The old man wouldn't think that she was wishful thinking, would he? Forget it, let him think what he wants, just don't mention the transfer of assets for the time being. Back at the old house, Qin Ye hurried to push the wheelchair, and Nan Yan helped Grandpa and get out of the car. Qin Lu helped Nan Yan take down the suitcase and backpack and brought them to the living room. "Alu, I'm really sorry to bother you," Grandpa said with a smile. Qin Lu said in a calm voice, "It's not a bother." He looked at Nan Yan leisurely, his deep eyes exaggerating her unique pampering. "Yan Yan's affairs are never a bother to me." Nan Yan was sniped by his eyes, and her heartbeat was out of rhythm. She turned her eyes away with some heat in her ears, and didn't dare to look at him again. Seeing the postures of the two people, Grandpa An felt that his granddaughter seemed to have a good impression of Qin Lu. But think about it, like Qin Lu, a nearly perfect man, how can a woman resist? Especially, Yan Yan, who is at the age of falling in love, may find it even more difficult to resist his charm. Grandpa An's mood was a little tangled, and then he thought that it seemed good to have Qin Lu take care of Nan Yan like this. At least he is a big backer, with him around, no one will bully her. After thinking it through, Mr. An became more enthusiastic towards Qin Lu. "It's almost time for dinner, stay for dinner." Qin Lu smiled, "Then I'm sorry to bother you." As soon as he finished speaking, the phone in his pocket vibrated again. His phone had vibrated several times, but each time it was ruthlessly ignored by Mr. Qin. This time was no exception. At this time, Wu Yu was holding his phone anxiously, almost wailing in his heart. "Mr. Qin, answer the phone quickly. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to let us know. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss." Author, Junanan. Chapter 140. What is Mr. Qin busy with? So busy that he doesn't even have time to answer the phone. The beautiful woman sat leisurely in the boss chair, her long legs crossed. She was wearing a white women's suit skirt, and in this position, her thighs were exposed. The collar of her top was very low, showing off her proud figure without hesitation. Wu Yu didn't dare to look up or down, and could only try not to look at her. He said seriously, "Mr. Qin is really busy when he is busy. His phone will be silent, so it's normal not to see him. Miss Luo, why don't you wait for Mr. Qin to come back before coming over?" "No, I'll wait for him here." Luo Ling gritted her teeth, a little annoyed. She found out that Qin Lu's work was not very busy recently, and he often just went to inspect for half a day and then left. In theory, he should have a lot of time. But she looked for him several times, and every time she saw only the assistant in front of her, and then he made all kinds of excuses. She didn't even see him again and again. She couldn't help but wonder if Qin Lu was deliberately avoiding her. Thinking of this possibility, she couldn't help but frown. "Then wait for me, I'm going to get busy." Wu Yu didn't dare to stay in the same office with her. He was afraid that she would catch him and ask about the whereabouts of the young master. He really had no idea what to do with this young lady. The young master didn't know what he was busy with. Didn't he say that he was just helping Miss Nan pick up Mr. An? Why does it take so long to pick someone up? Hashtag. Qin Lu looked at his phone when he was free for dinner. He saw several missed calls from Wu Yu on it, but he didn't plan to answer them, so he put the phone away again. Nan Yan saw his little action, and her eyes moved slightly. She asked softly, "Brother, do you have work to do?" "No," Qin Lu answered calmly, "it's junk news." Nan Yan nodded without thinking much. Qin Lu looked at the little girl's gullible look, and the corners of his lips curled up slightly. She believed everything he said. This made him want to bully her. After having a meal in the old house, Wu Yu called him twice and finally sent him a text message asking when he would be back. There was no other way, Qin Lu could only go back to deal with things first. Nan Yan sent Qin Lu out. Before getting in the car, Qin Lu looked at the little guy in front of him and said, "Call your brother if you have anything. Your brother will come to see you when he is free." Nan Yan nodded obediently. "By the way, brother, the medicine for Grandma and Aunt Li will be ready in 2 days. The eldest son of the Cheng family said that he would come to get the medicine in person. If you don't have time, why don't you ask him to take it with you? The medicinal materials in the dark domain will arrive tomorrow at the latest. One day is enough for her to develop all the medicinal materials into pills. Qin Lu pondered for a moment. We'll talk about it later. Oh. Qin Lu opened the car door, and before getting in, he pinched the girl's cheek again. I'm leaving first, remember to contact me if you have anything. Nan Yan was a little speechless. I know, brother, you are so nagging. She is not a child, there is no need to remind her over and over again. Qin Lu was amused by her conscienceless appearance. Others want him to care about them, but this little girl is really ungrateful. But he just likes this little conscienceless guy. Licking his itchy teeth, Qin Lu got in the car smoothly and closed the door. Then he lowered the window and waved to her, let's go. Nan Yan waved perfunctorily, slow down on the road, brother. Hashtag. After seeing Qin Lu off, Nan Yan planned to go back and clean up her room. After eating, Mr. N had returned to his bedroom. He is very weak now, and he has to stay in bed most of the time every day. Qin Ye saw her coming back and asked, Miss Nan Yan, do you like the decoration style of this room? If not, then redecorate it. It's pretty good. Nan Yan was not so picky about where she lived, as long as she could sleep. And Mr. N obviously cared about her very much. This bedroom was decorated very warmly and girly. If I had to say something I was not satisfied with, it was that there were too many pinks, but I could barely accept it. Uncle Tian, go and do your work. If I have something to do, I will find you. Okay, if you can't find me, you can find other servants. The old man has told the servants before that you will also be the owner of the old house in the future, and they will try their best to meet your requirements. Nan Yan nodded, okay. Qin Ye left quickly to do his own thing. Nan Yan put all the things she used for refining medicine in the small study next to the bedroom. This study is now also for her to use. Nan Yan looked around and felt that it would be more appropriate to change it into a pharmacy. After all, she didn't need to read books, and a table for doing homework would be enough. Do it as soon as you say it, but you still have to tell Qin Ye first. Nan Yan called Qin Ye directly, Uncle Tian, I want to change the study, is it okay? Qin Ye, yes, Miss Nan Yan, whatever you want, just do it, make a list of what you need, and I will ask someone to buy it. After getting the consent, Nan Yan simply listed the things she wanted. Qin Ye was also fast. After getting the list, he got everything back in 2 hours. He also found 2 decoration masters to renovate the study according to Nan Yan's wishes. I worked until the evening, and the study room was completely changed. The bookshelf was turned into a cabinet for Chinese medicine, and other medicine furnaces for refining medicinal materials were also bought. 5 medicine pots for boiling medicine were bought at once. Other necessary equipment was also quite complete. Qin Ye even bought many things that were not listed on her list and she thought were useless. It is estimated that he was fooled by the clerk when he went shopping, and he might have bought them in a package. That night, Qin Ye saw Nan Yan's medical skills. To be precise, it was acupuncture. He was there when Tao Qingming gave acupuncture to Mr. N before. He was also there when Nan Yan gave acupuncture to Mr. N this time. Although he did not understand medical skills, it did not prevent him from seeing the difference between the two people's acupuncture. Nan Yan's acupuncture speed was too fast. It seemed that there was no need to determine the acupuncture points at all, and the speed of inserting the needles was so fast that it was dazzling. This is simply too amazing. Grandpa N couldn't help but sigh. His granddaughter is so amazing. After waiting for half an hour, Nan Yan took out the silver needle and brought a box of Chinese medicine bags. Grandpa, soak your feet every night before going to bed. Okay, no, Grandpa N agreed with a smile. Anyway, he will do whatever his granddaughter asks him to do. He will leave all his old bones to her. 8 o'clock in the evening. Nan Yan was about to play the game and train the people of Anziran's team when she received a call from Shen Junking. However, after she answered the phone, the other party did not speak for a long time.